Hello and welcome. This is Story Impact. I'm your host, Lisa Tolles. I started the series because helping and supporting authors in their stories is my passion and my calling. The series introduces you to amazing visionaries and storytellers who share details of their writing journey, their challenges, and how they're differentiating themselves in an incredibly crowded marketplace. But most importantly, these conversations are about the meaning that these stories bring to the authors and to their readers, and how that deepens our human experience. I'm also a crime novelist, and you can find my books on Amazon. And to learn more, go to lisatolles.com. All right, so today I'm really happy to be talking with my talented friend, author Robert Plant. Robert and I know each other from TikTok, and I've read his moving novel, Heartstrings. Robert's a new author with a knack for stirring the soul with his novels and short stories. Writing is in Robert's blood, and has been his passion since college. He also likes to play hockey and guitar in his spare time, though it doesn't seem like he has much spare time. And he's joining us today from Frederick, Maryland, where he lives with his wife and two children. Robert, welcome, and thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so you and I met on TikTok, right? How
Yes, we
does
did. Yeah.
how do you feel your engagement on social media apps like TikTok help you as a writer?
I think one of the best things about social media in general is being able to connect with the people who are kind of in your world, right? And the author community has a very strong presence, especially on TikTok. So it's been great meeting other indie authors who are in the same boat as me, and it's always great to connect with them and learn about their experiences. And they've helped me along the way for sure, and you being one of them.
You have helped me too. I think at one point you read one of my books and you made a short TikTok video about it. And we read each other's books and we support
Right.
each other. And I think that's the whole spirit of that app. So, all
And
right.
it's been great too. Like I've actually seen a correlation to my sales with what I'm doing on social media, which has been great. And if I go like 2 or 3 weeks without even mentioning my book or whatever, I notice that my sales drop. So
Mm,
it's definitely an area that is so important to authors, especially indie authors, because if you're not out there marketing your book on social media, you're probably not going to get as many sales as you could.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's great that you're willing to take the time to track that and monitor that, making that correlation. I think that's incredibly important to kind of watch how these things, all of our efforts are kind of feeding the overall purpose. Because you have like the writing part, then you have the business of writing part, which isn't nearly
Yeah,
as fun, but I mean, like, one definitely fuels the other.
for sure.
All right, so your book Heartstrings, which I loved, is about how music sort of brings your character Aiden back to life after a powerful loss that nearly breaks him. So I wanted to ask you, you're also a guitarist, you're a musician. What's your personal connection to music, and how does playing guitar fuel your creativity?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've literally sat in this chair and have felt like the muse isn't speaking to me. And I'll pick the guitar up and start playing, and then boom, it's back talking to me. So that's always been good. But I've had an interesting road with music. I wouldn't say that I'm a professional musician by any means. I'm more of like a campfire guitarist. But I went through a time in my life where music was a big part of my life, and then I actually broke up with an ex-girlfriend who sang, and her and I like did a lot of musical stuff together, and it kind of put a little bit of a damper on music for me, and I stopped playing as much as I normally would. And then I went on a family vacation probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and my nephews are starting to play, and we all just started playing together as a family, and it was this kumbaya moment, and the creativity in me just like started bursting at the seams, and I started playing guitar more. And then next thing you know, I started revisiting my writing and wanting to become a writer because of it.
That's awesome. I love that story. Thanks for sharing that. Um, So that tells us a little bit about the music part of your creativity. Now I want to hear about how and when did writing manifest in your life, and and did you start with novels, or was it something else that pulled you in?
Yeah, so I would say that the one thing that has kind of helped me be like get to the point of being a writer is this my support system, right? The people around me. And when I was in college, I was taking some writing classes, and that's when it like really sparked for me, like, oh, I'm pretty good at this, and it's fun, and it's something that I like to do. And I was talking with my mom in her kitchen one day, and I was becoming a senior in college, and we were talking about my future and what I wanted to do. And she said this one small comment to me, and it stuck with me for forever. She said, you know, you're a pretty good writer. Why don't you do something with that? And it was like, wow, like my mom, of course, she's my mom. She's going to tell me I'm great at everything. But I could tell she really meant it. And when I went out into the corporate world, it was like, okay, I have to like make money. And I didn't really think that being a writer was something realistic. And then finding out about self-publishing and that comment that my mom made to me like 10 years ago, maybe, was something that spurred me to get into my writing. So the support from my mom, believe it or not.
That I do believe it, and
Yeah.
feeling that kind of backing and love and encouragement behind you, behind your creative engine. I definitely get that. That's awesome. Um, you live a very busy life, I've noticed, just talking to you and learning about kind of your background. You manage a full-time tech job and you have a family and your writing career. Do you have any survival tips for how these can kind of coexist in your life?
Well, I will say first and foremost, family is number one. I always want to put them first over anything. And it's important for me to be able to provide for my family. And that's why I have a full-time job. And ideally, I think we all want to be full-time writers and get, you know, maybe picked up by one of the big five and get that contract and everything. But for me, it's family number one, and the rest comes after it. And what I kind of try to do is not be too hard on myself, right? Like there are weeks that go by where I don't write a single word, you know,
Hmm.
but I'm thinking about things. I'm still digesting things, maybe taking some notes here and there, but I try not to be too hard on myself. Like, man, you haven't written. Well, I've been focusing on some other things in my life at that time. So
Hmm.
I think that that's important, but definitely curious, you know, how you handle it too. I think just even if writing is your number one thing and that's all you have to think about, it's still a really tough job and a tough thing to do.
It's very hard. It sounds like you are more mature and self-attuned as far as that goes. I'm kind of struggling right now in that I haven't written I'm not writing a book right now. And that means that like in some ways my whole world is broken. So I finished writing
Oh
one a
no.
couple of months ago. And I have like you said, I have the ideas for one. I have some plot elements, I have some characters, and I just haven't put fingers on the keyboard yet.
Mhm.
Why? Because I just can feel that it's like not the right time. And I have to kind of like sit back and sort of let everything germinate, let everything kind of
It's
marinate a little bit more and trust that it's going to come. And it's very hard. So yeah.
even with me writing heartstrings, I got a decent amount accomplished. And then I took like 3 months off, and it was to the point where I could have taken it in a few different directions. And
Mm.
I said, you know, I need to take a step back here for a second. So I think that that's an important thing to do. And again,
Mm-hmm.
not beat yourself up about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am unwittingly taking some time off. I don't want to be doing that, but that's what needs to happen right now. And that is part of my just personal convoluted process. Everyone's is different, right?
And you're doing this, which is amazing and great. So you're still involved.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a question that I like to ask all my guests because everyone kind of takes it in a different direction. What did you do in your early life that might have prepared you for your author's journey? You know, you've talked about how that one comment that your mom made sort of like, turned on a light in your head, like, oh, wow, interesting. That could be like one of my life's paths. But just thinking early on in your life, what were those kind of elements that might have prepared you for this?
Yeah, I think it starts at a young age, and there are two things that I would say have most contributed to me being prepared for this. And one of them is, thankfully, I was fortunate enough, and my parents had the capability of sending me to a really good school, and I went to Catholic school for 13 years, and they pound grammar into you in those schools. It's so especially at an early age. I remember taking some pretty heavy grammar classes that I think helped get me to that point where my mom could tell me, hey, you're a pretty good writer. And then the second piece is the reading side of things, right? Like you have to be a reader if you want to be a writer. You have to understand the craft, see how the pros are doing it. And I remember one of my older sisters buying me Goosebumps when I was pretty young. And that's probably the first time that I like fell in love with books and
Mm.
was like, these are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that that kind of sparked my love for reading.
Mm. Okay, great point about the connection to reading too. Yeah. All right, so let's look at how you're publishing your books. What do you see as challenges right now in the publishing industry, and what do you see as opportunities? You have your own very unique path of how you're bringing your books and your short stories to your market, to your readers, to your followers. But what do you see as challenges, and what are some real advantages to it being, to all of the modalities that we have in 2024 right now?
Yeah, I'll start with the opportunities. And the biggest is being able to self-publish. I get questions a decent amount of like, whoa, like how did you get published? And I said, well, I did it myself. And they're like, oh, you can do that. And so it's something that I think that not a lot of people know about, but it's definitely starting to gain traction. And I think that's where the challenge comes in, is there are a lot of people coming out with books and wanting to be published, and we have a lot of indie authors. I definitely don't want to say that the market is saturated by any means, because I don't think that that's the case. And we want as many people writing as possible, right? There's so many great writers out there, but it
Yep.
definitely creates a little bit of a challenge, like especially trying to promote on TikTok and trying to stand out from other people, or even help other people try and stand out too.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to do that as much as I can, and I see an author really putting in the work and putting in the time, and they're not seeing the results, and I try to repost or make my own video about their book, and I think that that's important too. So that's probably another part of the opportunity, is the author network out there is tremendous and super supportive, which has been really great to be a part of.
I know you're doing that, and I see those things, and I'm always so inspired by that. I see you making posts about small accounts, someone who's new to TikTok or Book Talk, which is kind of the book planet within
Yeah.
TikTok, and talking about someone who's new to the platform, only has like 100 followers, but they're doing some really great things. And I think that's the whole fun for me, and why I'm here today is like lifting people up, opening a door for them and like creating some visibility. I think we all have to help each other like that, and you're doing a great job. All right, so
Thanks.
this is kind of a reflection question. Why do you write? And what would you say is your purpose as a writer?
Yeah. So selfishly, I kind of write for myself. It's kind of a cathartic activity where you can release your inner demons, your fears, your thoughts, and you can kind of put them out into the world and get them off your chest in a way. So there's definitely that piece. When I started my journey to become an author, I went into it with the mentality of, hey, I don't know if I want to do this to make $1 million, although that would be great. I initially started off saying, if I write this book and it changes one person's life for the better, then I will have reached my goal and feel accomplished. And I definitely did that. I connected with this one guy on TikTok, and he reached out to me and was like, hey, your book kind of sounds like something that happened to me. And he lost his wife, and he had been starting to talk to somebody that he plays music with and was feeling guilty about it. And he read my book and he said it helped him tremendously. And he wrote an amazing review for me. And we're now like really good friends. So if that's not a purpose for writing, then I don't know what is.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about Heartstrings. Tell us, tell the viewers here about the book and talk about Aiden, and tell us a little bit about that. And if you want to hold it up, if you have a copy of it that you can hold up and show us the cover of it, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Go. All right, so here's the cover of the book. And this was done, the cover was done by a lady named Hannah Linder, and she did an amazing job. I was so happy with her work. So if anyone needs some cover art for their book, definitely reach out to Hannah. But diving into Heartstrings, it's about a young man named Aiden. I guess he's not young, he's got an 18-year-old daughter. But his wife and son tragically die in a house fire. And it's about him coping with their death and trying to figure out a new path in his life to move forward. And as I mentioned, he has a daughter who's 18, about to go off to college. And she basically kind of blames him for not necessarily them dying, but not saving them. And there's a little bit of friction between them, and they're trying to kind of mend their relationship as they're both grieving in different ways. And so that kind of, what do you call it? When they're kind of butting heads, it gets a little bit more sticky when one of Aiden's old friends comes into the picture, a young lady named Jane who he used to play music with. So she kind of, rekindles that friendship, and that friendship grows a little bit more, and it creates more tension between Aiden and his daughter Bree. So it's about them trying to figure out how they can kind of move forward, and Aiden has to make a decision. Is this, something that I want to focus on, like me, for me to get past this and focus on myself, or am I gonna kind of take care of my daughter and then that relationship too? So that's I guess the gist of the book.
I read your, I'm not a super fast reader, and I read your book in 3 days, and I didn't have a lot of available time at that time. So it really hooked me. It's a very, your writing is immersive, but the story is immersive. Like you're talking about very universal themes, loss. Like we've all experienced it. We've all experienced that rock bottom where we don't know where to go. And a lot of times that can really show you who you are and what's important to you. So I really liked the universal themes of it. What are you working on next?
Yeah, so you've mentioned a few times that I have some short stories, and I actually have two that I published directly on my website, and they're available for free. But I actually shared some news today with my social media community that I'm taking those stories down this weekend, after this weekend. So I can put them on Kindle Vella. I don't know if you've heard of Kindle Vella before, but I'm jumping in there, and I'm going to take a stab at that platform. So you're familiar with it?
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What made you make that decision to kind of change that format for them?
Yeah, so the full goal here is I have probably 9 or 10 stories that I'm working on, short stories, and I want to eventually put them into a compilation book and publish that when I'm done with all of the stories. So right now I'm done with 2 of them, and I want to kind of show readers like how I'm going through each one and kind of allow them to join my path in creating this book. And Kindle Vella is a perfect platform for that because it's kind of a serialized writing platform or reading platform. So like you can put up basically an episode of 600 to 5,000 words, and it's perfect for short stories in my opinion. Kind of think about a novel as being more like a movie, whereas a Kindle Vella series is more like a TV show.
Awesome.
Yeah. And to give you some background on what the stories are about, it's not really the same genre as my book Heartstrings. This is more, I would say, along the Stephen King lines of, maybe science fiction, a little bit of horror, some thrilling stuff going on too. So if you've seen shows like Black Mirror or Twilight Zone, it's kind of along those lines.
All right. So Robert Plant, The Dark Side. Check out those stories.
I'm actually calling it Dark Matter is the name of it.
I can't wait. All right. Thank you, Robert. Again, this is Story Impact, a YouTube series intended to showcase authors, their writing journey, and the unique perspectives that drive the creation of their books. Please visit robertplantwrites.com to learn more, and you can find his books on Amazon. And thanks so much for joining today, and let's keep those stories going.